How's it going, everybody? I hope you're having lovely days. I realize my politics has changed quite a bit. I haven't been taking this test for a long time, so I'm expecting some big changes when it comes to my politics. So without further ado, let's get started. One thing that I don't like about this test is a lot of times there isn't like middle option. Like you have to choose you agree or disagree. Whereas in reality, you can have no opinion, no strong opinion on a lot of political issues. And I don't necessarily believe like being forced to pick a side is anything virtuous. This kind of test is not like it doesn't define your politics, but I feel like it's a good way to start a conversation about like what you actually believe. Anyway, if economic globalism is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. Strongly agree. I feel like I'm still like a utilitarian at heart. I don't really identify with like humanist um as much these days because I feel like the word humanist kind of doesn't mean anything, and also I feel like transhumanism is pretty based. So uh but yeah, generally speaking, I still think like prioritizing utility is a good thing. Yeah, if those interests are at odds with each other, then I choose humanity over corporations for very obvious reasons. I'd always support my country, whether it was right or wrong. Strongly disagree. Actually, I don't even think anyone is supporting that now. Like even nationalists won't be supporting that now, especially in the Anglosphere. Like it's just a weird thing to support. You know, what even is my country? Do you mean the people or do you mean the state? No one choose their country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. In the past, I think I choose strongly agree. I don't feel as strongly now. I think like right now, I'm just like fully convinced that free will doesn't exist. Assuming that free will doesn't exist, then anything that you can be proud of, the things that we would like traditionally contribute to like your personal effort, uh also are things outside of your control, right? I feel like everything that one can be proud of are things that's outside their control. I still think it's foolish to be proud of your culture of birth simply because that just feels like a more substantial kind of determined thing, if that makes sense. Like even though everything's like more or less determined, um, country of birth is just like such a profoundly determined thing that I don't really think it makes much sense. Our race has many superior qualities compared to other races. Strongly disagree. Like I feel like even if you're believing RR, I don't necessarily think this is true. Like especially when we're talking like many superior qualities. I mean, because I feel like you can say a lot about the culture of the people. But like just from the biological perspective, I feel like there aren't that many advantages when it comes to different races. At least based on my experience, the major difference between different races is like the skin color. Anyway, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Uh, disagree. That being said, I still think it's virtuous to not treat your enemy that harsh. But that doesn't make them your friend. It's certainly not by principle. Anyway, military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. Agree. I feel like if you're gonna agree that actions that against national law is justified, then violence against international laws should also sometimes be justified. And there is now a warring fusion of information and entertainment. Disagree? I would even go with like strongly disagree on this one because I feel like historically there are a lot of overlap between just information and entertainment. That is just like historically the case. Like why do people like Shakespeare? That is like not just informative, but also it's entertaining. And also, like, why do we have so many parables across different cultures? Like, we all have parables. When you really think about it, every parable is a fusion between information and entertainment. Because just based on my subjective experience, it does seem to be the case that when people are entertained, they're more engaged just overall. So I would strongly disagree. And if anything, I think there's a lack of fusion between the two. Let's just say we update a school and every like science teacher is like Kazakh or visas. Like you may disagree with their politics, but like wouldn't you agree that's a better way to learn just overall? I feel like a lot of people when they talk about there's the warring fusion between information and entertainment, they always view things through this like very reductive way, which is learning has to be boring and somehow making things boring is going to make you learn better. No, it doesn't doesn't make you learn better. Yeah, you can learn more certainly by reading academic paper. But I feel like that's not the best way to consume information, just full stop. If there's like a more entertaining way to consume academic papers, it would be great. Education should be entertaining. Economy. Let's talk about economy. People are ultimately divided more by classes than by nationality. Strongly disagree. I think that's a bunch of baloney. Let's just choose an extreme example, right? Let's again choose an extreme example. Let's say you're the leader of like some African tribe, and you're like the top dog of that tribe. You don't speak any foreign language, and everyone in Britain we always have a common language. Whereas if you're like just like parachute dropped to that like random ass African tribe, you can't even communicate with each other. This just seems like a really weird premise. Like your experience as a citizen can be very different based on your social class. But like at least for most of the part, people are speaking the same thing. People are saying the same thing. People understand the same thing. Especially with the internet, like a lot of this information they're just like accessible. Um, Not compare that with some random ass African tribe that doesn't have internet. It does seem to be very different. Anyway, controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. Disagree. Both are important, and also that's like highly context dependent, right? If it's in like fucking Great Depression, like 60% of people don't have a job. No shit, control unemployment. If you're in like fucking Zimbabwe, the inflation is like 1000%. Then yeah, no shit, control inflation. Like those two things are highly context dependent, and you cannot say if one is always strictly more important than the other because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment. They require regulation. I would say agree. Like just based on historic records, a lot of chemical companies have done really, really shitty things. From each according to his ability to each according to his need is a fundamentally good idea. Strongly disagree. I think I used to just disagree. Now I feel it's like more strongly about this. I really thought through the premise of this. Um, so like when you really think about this, let's just say I need a universe for whatever arbitrary reason. But I think it would be really fun for me to have my own universe. The desire of humans are like practically infinite. But the ability to fulfill those desires are always limited. Like when I talk to some Marxists, they always somehow believe that human desires are somehow limited. I mean, yeah, sure, maybe you don't need as much of stuff, but I want 2 universes actually. Well, 3 universes. Actually, I want a fucking 1,000 different universe. What do you do in that case? We don't have universes just laying around to be assigned a new owner. And the way that you can solve this is either by just assuming we have infinite resource and infinite ability, infinite means to fulfill those resources. In which case, from each according to his ability also doesn't matter because like if we just have infinite resource, infinity divided by like how many population we have, which is a finite number, it's also gonna be infinite. So like everyone will still have infinite resource, no matter how you divide it. So like assuming we have infinite resource, this doesn't make sense. Assuming we have finite resource, this still doesn't make sense because you just encourage people to want more. If like people who need more can simply get more, that people will the people who will get more stuff would be people who are most needed, and that's just that's just such a stupid way to want things to be. There's certainly nothing virtuous about like just really want stuff. The freer the market, the freer the people. Agree. I'm not sure if I'm playing a word game here, but I feel like a lot of people like would make an argument say, "Oh, well, this is not a free market. If there's only one provider in town, it's not a free market." And I do feel like if there is no regulation at all, you'll probably end it up with like a very free market, certainly much freer than whatever we have right now. One thing I'm not entirely convinced is I think things can get sufficiently bad before they're resolved. There are things like climate change where things can get sufficiently bad. In general, I do think like freer the markets, freer the people, because if you try to regulate the market, uh, it almost always produces more monopolies and a less effective way to allocate resources. I don't know about you, but I feel like most people spend most of their lives in their jobs or in the marketplace. So like if those places are regulated more, you certainly just get like less freedom overall. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is not bottled, branded consumer product. Disagree. I don't think there's anything sad about bottled water because like it's not trivial to bottle water. I will tell you that. And you certainly are not entitled to have water. It's not an entitlement. Land shouldn't be a commodity that to be bought and sold. Disagree. A lot of people have lots to say about Georgism. But they always overlook the single biggest Georgist country, which is the People's Republic of China. Like the People's Republic of China is running on Georgism for most of the part. Only like what 10% of the population pay any effective tax, and the entire government runs on real estate. And you also cannot own land. You can only have lease. If you like your government to become the Chinese government, where and your housing situation to be like China, where everyone's going to buy it as like investment property. Because here's the thing: trying to stop people from owning land, it's not going to prevent. It's simply not going to prevent people from buying and selling, right? As long as there's a scarce of resource, as long as there's free market somewhere, people will be able to buy and sell. Now, if you have government backing that, have like infinite monopoly over that, you will just end up with the government trying to extract as much value as possible, and you will get like really, really dumb zoning decisions. And you don't want really, really dumb governments making really, really dumb decisions. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. I would say disagree. I would assume they're just talking to like bankers and investment firms. I feel like this whole sentence kind of assumed that they're contributing nothing to the society. Whereas I do believe like banking system contributes quite a lot to the society by providing well financial services. You would assume, right? They contribute quote unquote contributes nothing to the society, which I still don't believe like anyone who contributes nothing to the society can ever earn any money. Um let's just assume they simply manipulate money. Manipulate money is not morally wrong. The only thing that's morally wrong is like manipulating people. If there are manipulating people using like these genuine tactics, yeah, it's a morally bad thing to do. But I don't really think like simply transferring money in and out is a bad thing. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. Disagree. It's not necessary. I feel like there's always a better way than fucking protectionism. Because the issue is like every time when you try to do protectionism over something, it always ended up backfired. My dad actually is a huge Trump fan. He's like he's like so fucking supportive for Trump's tariff. I was like, no. Okay, like even if we're talking like protectionism as a tactic, right? It certainly doesn't work in a democratic democracy. Cause like yeah, if those rules are just gonna be overturned in 5 years, like It's just a stupid disruption of business. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. Strongly disagree. That's a bunch of baloney. I will tell you that. I feel like shareholders typically have a very high time preference. They want to see the profit today, even a lot of times at the detriment of the success of the company, right? There are definitely many things that matters more than shareholders, the customers and the employees. It's not it cannot be shareholder value all the way down. That's like so fucking silly. The rich are too highly taxed. I feel like this is dependent on the country or the region. For my country, for my region, I think that's that they're too highly taxed. I feel like as long as you have some kinds of like progressive income tax, it's rather unfair. I can get behind of like the idea that everyone get taxed the same percentage. So like the rich will just like get taxed more by raw value. The issue with like the really stupid and complicated tax code is that you don't even fucking know what to do. Like at some point when your text has become so fucking complicated, it just no longer make any sense anymore. And also, I feel like in China is a bit of a special case, right? Where like most people are employed either by the government or in like a government run business. The whole idea is just fundamentally silly. Like you work for the fucking government, the government pays you, but what after they paid you, they're being fucking taxed and give the money back to the government. It's like what the fuck is that? That's just fucking money laundering. That's bullshit. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standard of medical care. Strongly agree. Not necessarily because I think that's like a good reality or anything. I just feel like if you say no to this, what is your position? What is like your honest to God position? The only honest to God position that you can have to this would be something like, because like let's assume we're living in socialist time, right? Where like there's free government healthcare everywhere. Inevitably there will be a discrepancy between different states, different provinces. Even just by chance, right? There will be places that just happens to have better health, even when it's free. Even if you support universal healthcare, which in some sense, I can get behind universal healthcare. But even if you have universal healthcare, different provinces will still have different healthcare. If you wanted like the people just unable to get better healthcare, even when they have more money, you have to restrict fucking travel. Because this will always end up in the lowest denominator. That it's just a fundamentally silly idea. Government should penalize businesses that mislead the public. Yeah, I agree. I feel like there's just like too much propaganda. A lot of people are gonna say, "Oh, that means you want a Department of Truth or whatever." But I feel like let's assume like we have a whistleblower, and that whistleblower is like saying that company is a bunch of baloney. Everyone agrees that company is a bunch of baloney. Then yeah, why not? If people are promised a certain product, they should get what they are what is advertised on it. It's either by trusted third party private firm to confirm that, and or it's by the government. Government does the job is sometimes better than no one does the job. A genuine free market requires restriction on the ability of predator multinational to create monopolies. I don't really think there's anything wrong with like multinational corporations. Let's say Google, right? That might be like the biggest monopoly right now. But like even then, you would certainly like to live in a country where you're allowed to use Google. So yeah, I would just disagree on that because I think it's like a free internet is important, and I fail to see how any source of regulation on the internet is not going to have like a really negative impact on the information that people will be able to access. Okay, let's talk about social values. Abortion, when the woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. That's bullshit. I'm not saying like abortion is a good thing, but this is like a very extreme claim. You can certainly think of many cases where abortion, even when the life is not threatened, should be fucking legal. For example, if like a teenager got fucking raped, you should allow them to abort the fucking fetus. Let's also assume there's like incest going on. Yeah, abortion Like there's just so many cases like that you probably should allow for abortion because the alternative is much worse. Anyway, any authority should be questioned. Strongly agree. If it's phrased as um every statement or every truth claim should be questioned. I would not disagree. I would not agree as much. But it's specifically talking about authority. If you look around the world, everyone's like a meat bag. So like, why should I trust one meat bag just by principle more than other meat bag? It just failed to see why any walking human flesh shouldn't be questioned. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. I think I used to agree with this more. I feel like it's a weird way. It's a stupid way to contribute to like peace. An eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth is like you should punch back equally as hard. Which in my opinion, can never punch back equally as bad. Like it's not a possibility. Like the reason why we even have a justice system is for the overall flourishment of like human society, right? I can definitely see many cases where not punching back is going to be considered like very virtuous. Was that quote that said by Jesus, like if someone slapped you one side of your face, you should like let them slap the other side. There are definitely like many cases that I can think of where like it's important to tolerate people, when you disagree with them. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. I strongly agree. Like if it's a legitimate business, it'll just survive. Any reason why it's not survive is because it's a fucking money laundry scheme. Like how would you disagree with this? Like you have to somehow believe like theater is something that's like in principle good for society. Let's just say there's like whatever you disliked, right? If you're like on the left, let's just say there's like a Nazi museum that's like glorifying Nazi, or a theater that's like just like pushing like neo-Nazi propaganda all day every day. You don't want your money to go there, right? If you're on the right, like the Sam said, right? Like why the fuck would anyone want to prop up a theater or museum just because it's a theater or a museum? Like without any content about them, without having knowledge about the content of the museum or the theater, it just seems like a really odd idea for me to just want to prop it up for the sake of it. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. Agree? I mean, there's a bit of like my personal stuff. Like growing up, I did drop out quite a lot of courses. I'll tell you that. All people have their rights, but it's better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep their own kind. Disagree. Um, I think it is in fact easier for parents to deal with each other if they're like more similar, politically, culturally, linguistically, everything, right? I can see that, but it's a bit silly to push that kind of like segregationist thing because like a lot of amazing things are a result of like a mix of different ideas. I don't think it's better. I think it's equal. I think it's equally valid. So I would disagree with like claiming one is strictly better than the other. It's more of a personal preference thing. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. Strongly disagree. Maybe disagree. My parents certainly spanked me back then. I don't really think I've learned anything. Like if anything, like spanking your kids is only going to teach them like obey because you're gonna get beaten up, which I feel like is a fundamentally silly idea because like it just kind of implies that you think the kids are stupid or you think you don't really have an argument for your position. Like if you can't even convince your kid at an intellectual level and all you can do is just tell them to obey, I think that's really fucking cringe. It's natural for children to keep some secrets from their parents. Strongly agree. I think like privacy is a fundamental human right, and like even if you don't agree with that at a social level, I think like at least most of us would agree that one day the kids are gonna left their parents, and like if the kids didn't learn like how to behave without their parents, i.e. like be able to keep secrets from the parents, if they didn't learn that when they were young, they certainly will have a harder time learning it when they're fucking adults. Most of the things that would teach children is like to prepare them to be a functional member of the society, right? And I think like being watched by your parents is not a part of a functional society. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offense. Agree. It's not to say I like the smell of marijuana. I have seen many people complain the smell of marijuana everywhere. But you know what they do in Japan, right? Like they have like a special smoking room for everyone. I feel like people should do the same for marijuana or everywhere else actually. You should just have a smoking room, like anyone who wants to smoke, or who wants to use marijuana or any drug, really. You should just go to that room and just like embracing that the smoke and leave the rest of us intact. But yeah, I don't necessarily think possessing marijuana is anything bad. If we're gonna ban marijuana, we're also gonna ban alcohol. We're also gonna ban tobacco. We're even probably gonna ban fucking Coca-Cola because like Coca-Cola makes you obese and shit like that. So like no, this is just a silly premise. If you think something is potentially dangerous for a set of population and therefore we should ban it, we're going to ban everything. The prime function of schooling should be equip the future generation to find jobs. That's ridiculous. I think that the primary function of schooling should be prepare kids to be adults. Being adults is more than having a job. People with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. I feel like because this to me sounds like it's talking about like state laws, right? I feel like that's a bit silly for state laws to be such. Let's assume like someone has like a inherent disability for blindness, inheritable disability for blindness. They're just like born blind, and their kids will also be blind. Now, if that person is able to find a partner and is able to reproduce, the only assumption that I can make about that person is whatever that disability is, it is certainly not serious enough to cause that person unable to find a partner and unable to reproduce. Like as long as they can reproduce, they have the right to reproduce. The only criteria for reproduction should be the fact that you are able to reproduce at all. Like as long as you are able to reproduce, you should be allowed to reproduce. The important thing for children to learn is to accept disciplines. That's bullshit. Like I'm not saying it's not important to learn to accept disciplines. I just think like it's not the most important thing. It's also not the most important thing for children. Like you can learn to discipline yourself at any time, at any stage of your age. I think the more important thing about like for kids is to learn how to learn. Because like you either get disciplined by your parents or you get disciplined by society. You will like everyone will eventually be disciplined by their society. So I felt to see like how that is like I think a lot of people like growing up in a more liberal family might assume that the trauma with like socialization and awkwardness is coming from a lack of disciplines when they were kids. But my counter argument to that argument is that you still learn it when you are adults. So it's perfectly fine. Um and also like even if it's important, it's certainly not the most important thing. Um I feel like if you're someone who's able to you know how to learn, right? You know how to adapt to different situations quickly. Um, if you have that kind of ability, yeah, you will learn very fast to tell like how to accept different sets of social norms. Code switching, learn how to code switch. Anyway, I know like in the past when I was like more lefty, like everyone's equal, everything's like all human cultures are all the same, whatever. But then I watched like a documentary on that like the Indian like some random tribe on an Indian island. So allegedly they don't even have fire. Like they don't even fucking know how to make fire. I feel like it is a bit mean to say like, oh, Indian as a civilization is not as great as like the European civilizations, whatever. I think that argument is a bit mean and also like doesn't necessarily describe the reality. Like if Indian civilizations really aren't that bad, why the fuck did Britain got colonized by Indians? But all jokes aside, like when we're talking about like relatively civilized people, I think like the comparison becomes a bit muddy. But if we're talking about like the extremes, right? The extremes, like the people we have today, uh, able to produce like the device that you're watching this video, be able to like refine fucking silicon and have like crazy like EUV like fucking vaporizing what it's sodium iron or something, and then generate EUV and then fucking blast the chip. Like that's impressive. That's fucking impressive. And no matter how you spin it, I feel like that's some objective sense. This is better, objectively better, than some hunt and gather society that doesn't even have fire. Whatever that is, like, it's better than the fucking people who don't even know how to make fire. They can't say like, be able to control fire is not something that's objectively more civilized. I feel like having race and symbols, having fire, is like very good objective measurement for how civilized you are. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. Agree. I'm not saying society should not support them. I'm just saying they should not expect society to support them. And also, even when societies aren't necessarily supporting them, they're like something outside of society, right? I consider like parents, families to be something outside of society. So even if you're like a hikikomori, right? If you're like hikikomori, just stay at home. You can still suck on your parents. So like your parents are still gonna support you. So I think that's fine. When you're troubled, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. Agree? It's a sad thing, but I agree. I feel like when you're busy, you'll just forget a lot of like the sadness that's going on in your life. Anyway, first generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new society. Disagree? Right? That's highly context dependent. You could imagine someone immigrate to Pakistan from India, because they're Muslim or something, and India is like very anti-Muslim. Yeah, I feel like it depends on the context. If the cultures are similar, or even you're just living at the border and you immigrate to another country because like the border is kind of bullshit. Yeah, why not? Like the fucking Russians live in China. Like if they move to like Russia Federation, I fail to see why that would create any kind of like issue with like integration. What's good for the most corporation is always ultimately good for all of us. Disagree. Just because how absolute that statement is, feels like a very absolute statement. You can also see like how corporations can have like very misplaced priorities. So I would disagree on it. No broadcasting institution, however independent in its content, should receive public funding. Strongly agree. This question sounds like it's asking you whether you like assuming BBC is fully independent and doesn't have its political bias. Should it receive public funding? And I feel like the reason why I don't support institutions is like let's just assume BBC is a fully neutral institution, right? And fully independent when it comes to like content. The individuals within that institution are still going to have their own political biases and just like personal biases on a lot of things. So like I feel like unless everyone supports everyone in that institution, you shouldn't be forced to fund it. Because like even if you just disagree with like one person there, I feel like it's wrong to force people to like give money to someone who they do not agree politically. Um it just seems like rather odd. Or just don't agree for whatever reason. And how you see the wider society. Um our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counterterrorism. Strongly agree. This test was it was produced in like 2001. So like it was when like the counterterrorism was still at its peak. Like unless you're fucking stupid, I think like most people would agree that like the counterterrorism has gone too far. Like no matter what counterterrorism you think you're doing, the government the conclusion of a lot of those activities is like the government is going to spy and read every single text message that you have ever conducted. They're gonna record all the audios of every single phone call that you've ever had. Like I just fail to see how that is not a threat to civil liberty. Even if you somehow really trust your government, right, for whatever arbitrary reason, they're certainly not be responsible with that data. And as a matter of fact, I think like China just hacked the big American telecom um like what like last year. There's like a huge leak going on, and like no, you cannot trust those institutions to put your data safely. And the last time I was talking that about that with my friends, and she was like, "Oh yeah, but like, what if they're not going to get hacked? What if they're just like so good? They're not getting hacked. What if they're just that good?" I say, well, what if we have infinite resource? What if we have like whatever? What if they're like unicorn poops that are gonna cure all the disease? Like that's a retarded assumption to make. Like if you know anything about security or cybersecurity in particular, whatever thing that you have, as long as you allow for any sort of access, there's always gonna be some fucking leaking somewhere. You just shouldn't trust that. That's all. There's no good reason to trust any government institution with that data because they're gonna leak to the fucking other countries. Like even if your government is like perfect, whatever, the fact that your government can have that data has consequences. As long as you have a centralized authority, you have a centralized place for everything to get fucking compromised. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all the arguments that delay progress in a democratic political system. Disagree? Maybe I strongly disagree. You can definitely imagine a democratic system where like all the decisions are made extremely fast. For example, like we can just have a vote app, and whenever there's like a legislator passing a bill, uh you just receive a notification and you have a chance to click yes or no, and you have a 1 day period to vote. And yeah, and then every single bill will either be passed or rejected within 1 day. It can be really fast. But the reason why like democratic political systems appear to be slow isn't because like democracy is slow, but rather because democracy, like what we typically associated with a liberal democracy, typically have checks and balance. Checks and balance are what makes things slow. Some people might think like checks and balance are stupid, but checks and balance are good. They're good for business. Like you want to be able to do business in a predictable environment. Um, People just like predictable environment. You don't want things to like suddenly change every day. So yeah, I don't consider like this is just like a categorical era. Democratic system can be really fast. One party state can also be really slow. If assuming it has checks and balance. Like Japan, for example. Japan is practically one party state, and I think we can all agree like the Japanese bureaucracy is like insanely slow, and also the Chinese bureaucracy is also pretty fucking slow. So, uh, although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, it, only wrongdoers need to be worried. Strongly disagree. I feel like you probably know my position on like the whole privacy debates. You always support privacy because like you have something to hide. I feel like that's a really silly premise because like when you really think about it, wanting to surveillance your neighbor is a symptom of something not ideal. Like you're installing surveillance camera at your business is because you think someone's gonna steal something. So like whatever it is, having lots of surveillance camera is a sign that people don't trust their neighbor. It just means this place is turning into a low trust society. And I don't necessarily think like having cameras everywhere is necessarily going to increase trust. You know, like a lot of kids who are like super protected by their parents, and the first day they got to college just get absolutely fucking wasted. It's kind of like that, but at a societal level. Like if you force everyone to act virtuously on the surface through mass surveillance, I think it would be really hard to know the true nature of another person. And I feel like create a system where it promotes honesty is important. So I would just disagree on this. I just don't like the idea of like having every single action being monitored. That again goes back to like the every single electronic system is going to be compromised 1 day. Right? Even if you're like a big time government sucker, you suck the government dick every day. Even then, when there's like a adversarial, a hacker hacked into the system from another country, you're fucked. You're fucked. You don't want that. So like I just think like keep track of like those unnecessary data is just like fundamentally stupid, and also it blows the budget because all of those like cameras needs maintenance, and I will tell you it's not cheap. Especially when it's the government that's doing it. It's always the budget is always bloated. So like it doesn't work in principle, it doesn't work in practice. Death penalty should be an option for the most hideous crime. I agree. I'm actually like relatively generous when it comes to like death penalty. I don't think like just because you killed someone, you should be killed. Let's just say like you killed 2 people. Well, then we have a stronger case. You kill fucking 5 people. Have even stronger case. You were like massacring, shooting the school, killing the entire school. I mean, at that point, no matter what, like you can say, oh, under fucking drug influence, whatever. Like you need to be responsible. And if you're like going outside genociding, no, fuck off. You need to be killed. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to obey and people below to be commanded. Disagree. Just simply because I think the best kind of political system is where a lot of people are in roughly basically the same places and they don't have competition. The way that we keep checks and balance is to have a lot of people in the same position, right? Um, that's why I think like if we are going to have a status framework, a multi-party statism is definitely better than a single party statism because well, you have more parties and you can have more at least some level of like accountability. No, single pass voting system is fucked. But like it's still better than not having it. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art at all. Strongly disagree. I feel like just look at this avatar. I'm like decently into modern art. If that's the logic, right? If the logic for art is strictly realism, then the most beautiful art would be like always photography. The best sculpture would be like a fucking 3D scanned 3D printed model all the time. I think that's just a silly thing to think. I feel like arts always represents something. Like even when it appears stupid and retarded. For example, like the white on white, right? Like even when it appears as nonsense, it still represents something. Like white on white, you can say it's pretentious. You can say, oh, they're reading it too deep, whatever. But it still represents something. So I think like as long as the art is profitable, that means people want it. People feel things about it, and therefore it should be sold on the market. Might not be your personal cup of tea, but let people enjoy things. In criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. Disagree. Especially when the punishment went too far. I'm actually generally disagree with like jail time more than 20 years. I feel like jail time more than 20 years is just retarded. I feel like 5 years might even be like reasonable, but like more than 20 years. Like if someone is not gonna change their minds within 5 years, they're not gonna change their minds in 20 years. What ended up happening in a lot of those like jail cases is where it's you just have people who stay in the jail for too long and they're just unable to go back to a regular society. And that is fucking stupid because I don't think people should be forced to fund, support the life of criminals. I think that's a stupid thing to have. People should work for themselves. It's a waste of time to try to rehabilitate some criminals. Agree? Some criminals. I'm not saying like all criminals. I feel like if if you agree with death penalty, then yeah, if you think you need to kill someone at some point, then yeah, it just means you don't believe that person can be rehabilitated at all. Like again, if someone's like committing massacre, killing like thousands of people, um, and we have like fucking video evidence, and the motherfuckers writing a manifesto about like, oh, how they hate like kids or whatever. Yeah, fuck you. The business person and the manufacturers are more important than writers and the artists. Disagree. Like the fact that like I think a lot of people like are making this like categorical claims. Often ignore the fact that, Shakespeare's like he's definitely more important than like some random dude working at Walmart. Like not to be like too classist or whatever. Like Da Vinci uh probably matters more than like some random Chinese that's assembling your iPhone. Anyway, mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. Disagree. This is like heavily dependent on like the specific situation and also differs a lot across different cultures. I just don't think like one is strictly better than the other. Um if the husband is willing to become like the house husband and do all the chores, yeah, why not? All us now politicians promise economic growth, but we should heed the warning of climate science. That growth is the terminal to our efforts to curb global warming. I feel like a lot of people are making this like really weird assumption about like, oh, we need to protect the environment, we need to protect the earth. Yeah, but why should we protect the environment and protect the earth? Like, it's not because they're trees, right? Like, the only reason why we should care about the environment at all is because we are a part of the environment, and if the environment is fucked, we're fucked. That's like the only reason. And also, I just disagree with the idea that like economic growth has to be heated to like climate change. Like, assuming we had like a Dyson ball or whatever, and we were able to harvest solar energy completely within our solar system, like, how's that related to climate change? If your politics is hindering the progress of science, you are the problem. And I never understand like how can anyone call those people progressives when they want the most backward shit. It's like everyone just going back to like hunt and gathering society. Like, hunt and gathering societies are not efficient. They were never efficient. Agricultural societies are much more efficient. The crazy like animal farms that we have today are much more efficient producing meat than hunt and gather society ever could. So I don't know. I think like because we don't typically extract more resources. So like economic growth is almost always highly correlated to how efficient you can do things. So like having higher efficiency also generally means it's better for the environment. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. Disagree. I think that's a bunch of baloney. I feel like a lot of people confuse aging with maturity. I feel like as you age, you're more likely to make peace with the establishment because you're getting fucking old. And if you're still not at peace with the establishment, your life is gonna be fucking horrible. But it doesn't make you mature. It doesn't make you a mature person. It's the kind of thing that comes with age. Like assume like I can live forever, or not, maybe not forever. I feel like assume I can live for the next 500 years. Uh, I'm not gonna be at peace with the establishment if I know I can live for the next 500 years. Hell no. I'm going to like gather like a fucking secret society and overthrow like all the fucking government. There are like human conditions such as aging that makes you want to do this. But it's not a sign of maturity. It's a sign of aging, and you're about to die. If you got through that, okay, you will find this revelation on religion breeds easy breeds. Astrology accurately explains many things. Disagree. I think like astrology might correlate it to many things. Uh, I don't think it explains anything. You cannot be moral without being religious. Strongly disagree. I mean, we can do a thought experiment, right? Like whatever religion you consider to be moral, let's just say like there's a Christian, right? There's the Christian morality, whatever you think that is, or there's like a Buddhist morality, like there's a religion out there, and we consider that religion to be moral. You can certainly imagine someone who who claims to be atheist and still act by all intents purposes, align with those moral values, right? Unless you're making like some insanely stupid arguments of like, oh, all human disagreements are ultimately theological disagreement, and everyone's religious, and at that point you're just like removing the concept of religion so far away from how we typically use it. You're just like redefining the term religious or like being uh or theology that is so disattached from how people typically use it. I feel like you're not making a good faith argument. So like no, I don't think you need to be religious to be moral. Charity is better than social security as a mean of helping the genuine disadvantaged. Disagree. A lot of people would argue like the genuine disadvantaged are the people, precisely the people that are not being covered by social security, right? Like for example, like the minimal wage workers. They're working, but they still they lost all the benefits of like just not working at all. But they're still working. So like that, I would argue they're more disadvantaged than someone who's living off of social security. So like it's almost like kind of by definition, the social security by definition can't help with the people who are genuinely in disadvantage. Some people are naturally unlucky. Agree. Like if the question is asking if I believe you can attract unluckiness to you. I don't believe that. I don't think anyone attracts unluckiness. But I do think there are like people who are just like unlucky for whatever arbitrary reason. Well, most likely statistic reason. It is important that my child's school instill religious value. I disagree. Maybe it's strongly disagree. I guess I would just disagree. I think like having some religious value is fine. Uh, because like a big because like my issue with like people trying to like completely just saying like in principle we should not have religion in school is stupid because like religion is like a huge part of the majority part of human history, right? So trying to say oh well we just shouldn't do any religion is like kind of like oh we should just reject things that we've been doing for like thousands of years. That's a bit silly. But I don't consider that to be like the most important thing. Sex outside of marriage is usually immoral. Disagree. I think prostitutions are justified and prostitutions are real jobs. If there are needs and if there are people who are willing to fulfill those needs, it's not in the business of anyone to try to regulate that. Especially when it's like extremely popular. It's just extremely popular. Anyone who pretends that's not the case is just fucking stupid. I think prostitution is something that should be allowed. And I would imagine most of the size outside the marriage is either prostitution or you like Elon Musk just have like 10 fucking girlfriends and have like kids with girlfriends. Like it's like fucking harem without actually calling it a harem. I feel like both are fine. I don't consider it to be immoral. A same-sex couple is in a stable loving relationship should not be excluded from possibility of child adoption. Strongly agree. I think it's possible that homosexual couples might still have like a overall more negative impact than a male female couple. It's possible. It's definitely possible. But I just feel like the alternative is much worse because like if you're like in an orphanage, the orphanage is infinitely worse than being adopted by like a gay couple and they're in a very loving relationship. Right? This because they're always like responsible people and they're always irresponsible people. Uh like how many straight couples that you know that they're in a very not loving relationship? They fight each other all day. Like how many kids have family issues? Like that's just extremely common. I feel like and also like this is specifically stating that it's in a stable loving relationship, right? A stable loving homosexual couple versus like a not stable, not loving straight couple. Yeah, no shit. I choose the homos every day. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. Strongly agree. That's just true for like the entire human history. Like the Venus dolls, whatever, like pornography, but like sex, historically has been a huge driving force of like any source of arts creation and storytelling. So like trying to ignore that, in my opinion, is rather silly. I think there are cases where it's like more morally questionable, such as like maybe you're depicting rape, or maybe actually I think depicting rape is fine, but like there are cases where like the production is not like healthy, right? Um, but like I feel like saying oh production is not healthy, like they're like sex trafficking or whatever, is it's not a part of this question, right? Because like we can certainly imagine like oh it's just drawings depicting consenting adults, so it's entirely fiction and entirely depicting consenting adults. I fail to see how that can possibly, like, how you can have any reasonable moral objection to that. The only moral objection to that has to be like really fucking ridiculous. What goes on in the private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state. Strongly agree. Because any attempt of the state trying to regulate this would be fucking insane. Like how do you even regulate this? If let's just say like society somehow decided that let's just say incest, right? Yeah, let's say incest is bad. How do you make sure two people aren't having an incest relationship? They're just using condom, but like they're in an incest relationship. They just hide it from the public. How do you regulate that? Well, the only way that you can regulate that is to fucking install cameras everywhere. Um, fucking making sure like everyone's under watch 100% of the time. Like otherwise, it like how the fuck do you even know? It's just something that's like in principle unknowable. And any attempt to regulate that is dystopian. It is just insanely dystopian. No one can feel naturally homosexual. Strongly disagree. I feel like I feel like okay. I know like a lot of Christians are gonna like ironically making arguments that like having sex with your husband or wife in a straight relationship with a condom is somehow gay because fucking natural means like reproducing or some shit. No, that's not what it means. Uh, you're twisting the words. And I feel like if you're twisting the word, I'm gonna twist the word as well. But I'm not twisting the word of the Bible, I'm twisting the word of this question. You can even go so far as to argue, homosexuality is sinful. But Bible also said like human have sinful nature, so like it's still natural to sin. There's nothing unnatural about sin. But I don't personally consider a homosexuality to be immoral. I feel like humans are naturally bisexual for most of the part. But trying to force sexuality onto other people is always bad. These days openness about sex has gone too far. Strongly disagree. That's like I might have a more neutral stand if not for the collective shout. I guess that's a bit of a recency bias, but it's specifically asking about these days. These days it's clearly not gone far enough. If it really has gone far enough, we won't have fucking collective shout censoring absolutely fucking everything. This is ridiculous. The censorship is getting out of control. If there's like an even stronger disagree, I'm gonna fucking select that. I think it's clearly hasn't gone too far. This is insane. Anyway, let's see where I stand. North Korea's far left. You know they allow for like black markets and stuff. Saudi Arabia's how Saudi far right. This is bullshit. I don't think Saudi is like more right wing than China. Like Singapore, according to them, is more right wing than the fucking. According to them, Saudi and Singapore are basically the same thing. I would say no. Like you won't get fucking killed for There's no state religion in Singapore. That's for sure. No, I guess I'm a right winger now. I remember the last time I took the test. I think I was around the same place. I remember it's like maybe more libertarian back then. Um, like I feel like if you need a test to find out where you stand politically, and then use that as like something that defines you, like I find that to be like supremely cringe. Um, but I personally think it still has value on like without context. I feel like that it still has value on like demonstrating um how you view a lot of things and how because like different people will agree on different arguments. This this is kind of like uh I feel like this thing has kind of the same value as a debate. It's not going super deep into like political philosophy, but it's like a good. It's kind of like an icebreaker almost for like political discussions because I think it's a good indicator of what kinds of policies that you might support. But anyway, that's all for today's video. Let me know where you stand politically, and if you disagree with me on any of the claims. I feel like if you disagree with me, like I do wonder what's your reasoning. So that's all for today's video. Have a wonderful rest of your day. See ya.